Marshall, my friend, representative for St. Joseph, to the stage to you tonight. God bless you again.
Here I come with love and not hatred. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow I all the days of my life. Envy no one, no wish to be with no evil man. For then come the day when you'll be free like the feathers.
You know, I think if Dwight wanted to give a speech, he could have taken a few more minutes. Good night to the people of Taitt Hill. Good night to the people of St. George North. This area, all right, love. This area is very close to my heart. My grandmother, Ruth Marshall, until she died, just lived across this road. And my Aunt Joyce, and my Uncle Roy. So when I talk about me coming from the bosom of this constituency, you would know that I'm not bluffing. 2 Sunday nights ago, I spoke with the people of St. George North from the podium at Sheffield. And I spoke on that occasion asking you to support Tony Moore, a fine leader and a thinker. Good. And I commended Tony Moore to you as the best option in this election, but not just the best option, but also the choice of the people. And we've had 2 or 3 weeks of electioneering, and I know that some of you might be getting a little tired. But I'm glad to hear that. But we still have a ways to go before we get to the finish line. And for the party faithful, I'm asking you not to slow down in your efforts, not to grow weary. And for the constituents of St. George North who are now getting to know Tony, I'm asking you not to be distracted, not to be distracted by the many mouthings of her opponents on all sides. You know, from day one, they started with the distraction strategy by saying that you shouldn't vote for Tony Moore because she ain't from boat here. In Flat Rock, that was what they said. Tony Moore not from boat here, so don't vote for her. Now, we have a proud history in this country of pressing every Barbadian into service, regardless of where you come from or regardless of your circumstances. And with a population of only $300,000, we cannot afford to be telling people that they have to stand on the sidelines, that they can't contribute because they're not from any particular district. And for the Dems who are saying not to vote for Tony Moore because she's not from Bow here, I want to remind them that the Right Excellent Errol Barra never lived in St. John a day in his life. And the Right Excellent Grantley Herbert Adams, who represented St. Joseph's, never lived in St. Joseph. And Frondell Short came from St. Philip and ran in St. Michael, though he was hardly seen there. And I hear that Verla de Pisa is looking to run in St. Lucie. And by now you must know me, that I was born and bred in this constituency, but have faithfully represented the people of St. Joseph. So let us put that old story aside about she ain't from boat here. She is what St. George North needs. She is what Labour needs. And she is what the Barbados Labour Party needs. And when they got tired of that, they accused her of not resigning, as if she had committed some sin, some crime. An administration that broke near every law in this country, an administration that knew no bounds of moral standards or any decency, could call on somebody to resign. The party of Donville Innes could call on somebody in this country to resign from something. The party of Frondell Stewart and Michael Lashley and Stephen Lashley and David Deswick, they could call on somebody to resign. So reject that one too. And then they said, don't vote for Tony Moore because she sold out labor. Sold them out how? You know who was doing the selling out? The Democratic Labour Party had contracted for 2 desalination plants at a cost of $600 million each. That is selling out. They gave contracts to all of their people without bidding for them. Contracts that were overinflated, and that was selling out too. Tony Moore didn't sell out the workers. The Dems were trying to sell out Barbados for Cahill for $1 billion. Tony Moore defended the workers. And when you say to them, well, tell me how Tony sell out the workers, they say, well, she marched for 18% and only took 5%. But Tony Moore advised the workers who marched alongside with her to take 5% in circumstances where we were restructuring our debt and in circumstances where we tried to give the pensioners an increase as well. We tried to bring everybody along. Tony Moore did not sell out any workers. Tony Moore's last speech in the Senate, and I've played it again and again and again, I urge you to play it too, was a speech in support of the Barbados Labour Party not selling out workers, but appointing 3,100 public servants and giving them security of tenure. That's not somebody who sell out workers. So when they get rid of that now, you know what they left with this week? You know what left with this week? That we pulling down posters. So you see how the DLP campaign has fizzled. They want to go into the gutter, and we will leave them in the gutter. When they go low, we will go high. And when they do bad, the Barbados Labour Party will excel. In the evening hours of yesterday, a 20-year-old boy got shot. 6 gunshots, I am told, and he died. 20 years old. My son is 20 years old. And when I left the Labour Party conference last night, I went home and I hugged my son. And I said to him, son, the world can be an unkind place. And there are things that your father can't protect you from. Just stay on the straight and the narrow. And that is the message. If I start with it, I'm going to end with it. That is the message that I want to go far and wide tonight from this Barbados Labour Party platform. There are people every day who, and we know who they are, they call the calling program. The first call, oh, the Attorney General should resign. What about Don Villenes? Oh, the Attorney General should resign. Oh, the Attorney General is responsible for crime. On and on and on and on and on. But you can look at me and tell that I'm 6 foot tall and my shoulders are very broad. You see, the Democratic Labour Party, and this is not about, we keep saying, oh, don't go back, don't blame, don't blame, don't blame. I'm not blaming anybody. I just want to get the facts straight. Because before any government can look to move forward, they must first know the foundation on which they're standing. And we came to government in May of 2018. And the Democratic Labour Party behaving as though the problem of gun-related violence burst on our shores the day after the last election. But you and I were sitting in our homes when they were murdering people, shooting them down in the streets, up and down Barbados, and we were calling out the Democratic Labour Party day after day after day. And we were right to do so, in part because we were the opposition, but also because our bounden duty as an opposition is to say to a government, you can do better than this. The last administration abandoned the young people of this country, had very little to say about crime, They wanted to convince you that everything was all right. Everything is all right. We don't have a problem with crime in this country. But you and I were seeing it before our very eyes. And that is why in our covenant of hope, we said that the first call on state assets is going to be for citizen security and safety. Let there be no doubt. When we were in opposition, we recognized that gun violence was taking on unprecedented significance in the criminal element of this country. We recognized it. And I well remember we saying to the then administration, let us sit down and talk together. You have ideas and we have ideas. But they poo-poo that. They don't want anything from us. I would have preferred the Democratic Labour Party to have wrestled crime to the ground. Because for me, crime and the problems of crime are not a political issue. This is not a BLP or DLP issue. This is not about who can build the most houses. When we wrestle crime to the ground, we save lives. And we make everybody safe in their homes. We called them out for it. We said you could do better. But the last administration from coming to power spent every day, and I don't like to use Kerry Simmons kind of language, but I'm going to use it tonight, hope he forgives me, peeping under the police force to see who is a B or who is a D. That's what they did. At a time when they should have been tackling the issues of law enforcement, tackling the issues of crime and violence in our country, they spent their days trying to figure out who is a B and who is a D. And that's why when the Commissioner of Police submitted his recommendations, they waited until he went on holiday, and then they called the Deputy Commissioner, a man named Bertie Hines. And said, well, Bertie, we got these recommendations from a man named Dotton, but we hear he's a B, so we want yours. And through those kinds of pernicious dealings, they undermined and undercut the force. There's an old saying that when Rome was burning, Nero was fiddling. While law and order was getting out of hand in this country, the Dems were doing nothing. And we never promised Barbados that there would be a quick fix. But we guaranteed the people of Barbados that we would strain every sinew to make sure that we wrestle the problem of gun violence and crime to the ground. You know, for the first time in the history of Barbados, when we came to government, we, recognizing the problem that gun violence especially was, offered and hosted a National Security Council briefing for all of Cabinet, because we felt Cabinet needed to understand what was happening. And we included the leader of the opposition. If Granville Phillips have his way, he won't be leader for long. But we included Joe Adderley in that briefing. And we also briefed the parliamentarians and the senators separately. And then to cap it all off, we briefed all of the senior civil servants. And Cynthia could tell you, we briefed all of the senior civil servants on what was happening in Barbados as far as crime was concerned, because we recognize that you can't deal with the issue of crime purely as a policing problem. Yes, we've had problems with policing, but you can't arrest crime by only dealing with the policing issues. Now, for those DLP people who feel that gun violence only started last year or year before, I went into the archives. And in the newspaper of August 20th, 2015, the headline was "Gun Crazy." And the acting commissioner of police was then complaining about the abundance of illegal weapons in Barbados, which he said were coming into Barbados through legitimate ports of entry. And all through 2015, the commissioner of police was constantly saying to the last administration, we have a problem with guns. We have a problem with guns. Not a word from the then Attorney General. The commissioner said the guns were coming in through legitimate ports of entry. That would be the post office, the airport, the seaport. And the Prime Minister has told you before that the Democratic Labour Party presided over the total collapse of the infrastructure at the port so that we had no scanners to pick up the guns. The scanner was working 1 hour in 1 day every week. And 90% of all of the containers coming through our ports were going through to the people to whom they were destined without being scanned. We came to power and we fixed that. Because we recognize that unless we equip the officers at our ports of entry with the appropriate high-tech devices, we stood no chance of arresting the bringing of firearms into Barbados. And the Commissioner of Police on Friday said to the press that guns are still slipping through. We know that. They are still slipping through. This is nothing that we are hiding from the people. But I'm telling you that whatever slipping through now is a hell of a lot less than was coming through in the last administration. These are difficult times for Barbadians. And at a time when our economy is suffering, where we are having serious challenges, gun violence is not what you want to be greeted with. But let me tell you that we recognize also that there was a disconnect between the people committing the crimes and being charged and the cases being heard and convictions being imposed. When we came to government, we found over 1,000 criminal cases in the assizes awaiting trial. And we found 2 criminal judges. Do the maths. 2 criminal judges and over 1,000 criminal cases waiting to be tried in the High Court. And month after month after month, the last administration saw this and did not understand that it could not continue. If you look at our manifesto, we said that we were going to bring 2 new judges to the High Court to deal with criminal matters. Ladies and gentlemen, we brought 5. We brought 5 because we came to power and immediately recognized that we had a problem that was way over and above what we anticipated it would have been. And we fixed it. When we came to government, we found that people charged with firearms were getting bail. And I well remember the Prime Minister saying, I didn't know that people who were charged with murder were getting bail. He said so in 2017. But when you check the records, you would see that in 2016, 7 people who were charged with murder got bail. And 33 who were charged with firearm offenses got bail. And in 2017, 6 charged with murder got bail, 45 charged with firearm offenses got bail. And in 2018, 9 charged with murder got bail, and 38 with firearm offenses got bail. And instead of talking about it, I am proud to be in an administration that recognized we needed to do something about it. And we amended the Bail Act to say to the criminals, if you are charged with murder, if you are charged with a firearm offense, no bail for you. No bail for you. We have equipped the Royal Barbados Police Force because it is our intention to make sure that the Royal Barbados Police Force is the best equipped small force anywhere in the world. The time may only have 3 minutes left. But instead of destroying the force, this administration committed to the Commissioner that we are going to strengthen the Royal Barbados Police Force. And we are going to make sure that policemen are doing policing and not doing desk jobs and pushing paper. When we came to government, and this has been mentioned on our platform before, it would take you 6 to 8 weeks to get a police certificate of character. And the office had 6 police officers. And when they asked, what's the nature of the police officers that are doing this job? They were among the finest trained police officers that we have in this country who were dealing with issuing certificates of character. And they said it had to stop. We implemented a digital system so that if you need a certificate of character, you can get it in under 10 minutes. And you know what it did? It freed up those 6 police officers to go back doing policing. And all across the force since we came to government, we've been employing strategies to allow police officers who are trained to do policing and not be doing desk jobs. But let me tell you this in my final minute or two. I don't mind the people of the last administration calling for my resignation. My shoulders are broad. But let me say that I am committed to the task of securing Barbadians and Barbadians' lives. We have never offered any quick fixes. And that young man who got shot dead yesterday at age 20, 3 or 4 years ago, he would have been in one of our secondary schools. And maybe 2 years before that, he would have been in a Sunday school. That young man was not born a criminal. Somewhere along the way, he became a criminal. But it wasn't Cynthia Ford that made him a criminal. It wasn't Mia Motley that made him a criminal. It wasn't Ryan Strawn, Rawdon Adams. It wasn't any Barbados Labour Party MP that made him a criminal. There are systemic failings in our society that caused that young man, if he was a criminal, I don't know. And I hope I've caused no offense. But I'm really only dealing with the fact that a large number of our young men who are charged with firearm offenses are in their very early 20s. So those are the ones that I'm focusing on. If I cause any offense, let me apologize to you. But our young men were not made criminals by this Barbados Labour Party. Our young men were made criminals by a system that failed them. You call the police after it has happened. But hopefully you should call the parent before. And I'm not making any excuses. But in the same way I said to my son last night, son, stay on the straight and narrow. We have a responsibility as the individuals who are in a position to guide our young men and women, to tell them in the early to stay away from that environment. As a little boy, Cynthia, I could not bring home a toffee. I couldn't bring home a pencil because my parents stood for certain principles. Don't bring anything into this house that you did not carry. But today we have young men bringing home guns and bullets. And not a word. Not a word. Our job is a hard one. But it is made easier when the people of St. George North takes it in their minds to give us Tony Moore. Our job is a lot of heavy lifting. But our job will be made easier when the people of St. George North give us Tony Moore. And for those people who say that we have enough seats already, I don't know about that. I know that this country needs Tony Moore now more than ever. And I will be proud to sit in Parliament alongside her as she represents the interests not just of the working class, but the interests of the people in St. George North. I look forward to your support for among the finest candidates who has ever stood on a platform for any party in this country. Tony Moore, Tony Moore, Tony Moore. Good night and God bless you.